Sophomore bump, sophomore go.
Yeah, it's funny. Pete's an interesting one because I think we can all recognize that he's not perfect, right? And I think I tend to view Pete with a series of trade-offs and that's an evolving opinion with Pete over the course of the last 13 years. But I think that there's a lot of trade-offs with Pete, right? You have to give up some bad in order to get a lot of the things he does really, really well. I think you've got to give up some of the control on the sideline. You've got to give up some of the discipline. You've got to give up some of the communication with, getting plays in on time and timeout usage and some of that stuff. Some of that will go away with Pete. That's one of the trade-offs I believe, and he would probably argue with me, and that's fine. But my opinion would be that that's some of the trade-off for his culture building, his ability to get guys playing with their hair on fire, to get guys motivated, to build a group and a culture and a standard here in Seattle that stands for something and is good year in, year out. I think you also end up, and we've talked about this before, where, there is so much empowerment of the players that over time they can kind of overshadow him. They grow out of it a little bit because he really wants to turn them into men and turn them into adults. And when they get to that point of really being individual, they can start talking about the what was it Richard Sherman said? Not the karaoke room. What did he call it? The kumbaya room.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Kumbaya.
They can start talking about the kumbaya room.
Kumbaya, my lord. Kumbaya.
That's a great version of that.
Yep.
So I just tend to see Pete as a series of trade-offs.
Yep.
As for whether or not he can coach, I mean, the proof's in the pudding. The guy's in the playoffs every single year. He continues to have a winner almost no matter what. And I would hope that last year we learned that it was Pete who made Russ rather than the other way around.
Okay.
So when I put all those things
true.
together, I understand criticizing Pete because I think he's got some severe and significant weaknesses in addition to some unbelievable strengths. I just think the strengths outweigh the weaknesses by quite a large margin.
Here is the challenge that Pete is facing in this regard. In the court of public opinion, in the court of passionate NFL fans, here is the battle he is facing, Saul. As you were saying all of that, and I can't disagree with much of it at all. I'm lockstep with you. The trade-offs are, sign me up, man. I've said he's the greatest coach in sports history in our Pacific Northwest. But here's what he's fighting. Who is the front runner in the NFC West? The 49ers.
Right.
Coached by an offensive whiz. Who's the front runner in the AFC West? The Kansas City Chiefs. Coached by an offensive whiz. Who's the front runner in the NFC East? Philadelphia. Coached by an offensive guy. Who's the front runner in the AFC East? I mean, that one's a little tough, and obviously with the Jets out, you could say Saleh, there's a debate there. But Belichick, that's front runner. Tired, man. Defense guy, that's old. That's old school stuff.
Yeah.
That's old school stuff. Front runner in the AFC South, that would be Jacksonville. Hired Doug Peterson, offensive whiz.
Yeah.
Turned it around.
People love the guy in Miami right now. He's a big
Mike
one.
McDaniel.
Yep, that's a big name. Yeah, no, I think you're right about that. That's a good
You
point.
are fighting Tomlin, defensive guy, feels old. Belichick, New England, feels old. Pete, Seattle, feels old. Look what Sean McVay just did. Look what Sean McVay does in all these matchups with him. There is an overriding feeling, I think, amongst a lot of fans when they watch where this league is going and they see these offensive explosions and they see these offensive guys that set their teams up for success. And, oh, by the way, Andy Reid has won a couple Super Bowls and is at the front of the line. And, Sirianni. And, by the way, Dan Campbell, former tight end, offensive play caller, right, in Detroit. I mean, you just kind of go through it all, and it is going to be
So let me ask you this then.
a battle that he is going to fight with that messaging.
So is that a perception issue, Brock, or is that the reality of the modern NFL?
I think that there is a huge, huge part that can point to efficiency numbers and EPA and expected play this and go through all these numbers and not just say, hey, passing's better for you, but actually, hey, man, look at the innovative offense and look at what you can do and look how hard it is to play defense. And ask Bill Belichick what life is like since Tom Brady left, right? And he is this defensive mastermind, and how hard is it to play? And and this has not just been a 1 week challenge. Some of the defense last year, they didn't get to the playoffs because of their defense. They got to the playoffs last year because of Geno and this offense, right? And there's been some years here where it's tough. The yards gained, the yards per play, some of these defensive metrics have not been kind of like Tomlin and Belichick. So that is some of the current that he is fighting. And when we see the text toy, as we do, not just the negativity on social media or in that realm, but when we see the text toy the way we saw it yesterday, like, wow.
No, it's a good. I think you make a really astute observation there, Brock, and kudos to you. It kind of fits with the Cowherd stuff that we've heard for the last few years. And Cowherd's made that comp before, right? A defensive coach, older coach, 70-year-old coach. I mean, like we've heard that, and good on you for bringing it back. You're absolutely right. I'm sure that is absolutely part of what
in front of mine too, because look at what Sean McVay just did with Puka Nacua and Tutu Atwell. And a rookie guard. And
guess what I don't understand, though, is who cares whether the head coach is offensive or defensive? If you've got a good enough offensive coordinator, why would it matter?
I would agree with that. I would agree.
Is it just the image? Or is it like something ingrained in the defensive coach that won't allow them to cut it loose? I don't know what it would be.
See, that's where I
want
think
to cut it loose like Josh Allen did yesterday with four turnovers.
I think that's
cost his team a game.
I think that's where Pete's pretty unique, but he's going to have to prove to these. I think he's unique. I think he loves offense. I think he loves explosive plays. I think he knows that big reason they lost that game is they had 2 explosive plays, and the defense didn't do their part. So if you're going to be a defensive guy, Belichick, if you're going to be a defensive guy, Tomlin, if you're going to be a defensive guy, Pete, guess what your team needs to do? It needs to play good defense. And it needs to play some, at times, elite defense and shut people down and shut the door on the Sean McVay, Matthew Stafford, Puka Nacua, Tutu Atwells. Right? That's the way you stop some of that